All right, good evening, and welcome to the February 13th, 2024 Mercer Island Utility Board hybrid meeting. The time is now 5:01 p.m. I'm Will Quantz, Vice Chair of the Utility Board, filling in for Chair O'Connell, who's unable to be here today. Tonight's Utility Board is brought to you by Zoom and will be uploaded later to the city's YouTube channel. We welcome anyone wishing to watch the meeting live to join us on Zoom or at the Mercer Island Community Center for future in-person meetings. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us tonight. Will staff please call the roll call?
Sure. Chair O'Connell. Vice Chair Quantz.
Present.
Board Member Milton.
Present.
Board Member Lair.
Present.
Board Member Majewski.
Present.
Board Member Marshall.
Here.
Thank you. City staff, is there anyone who signed up for appearances that wishes to address the utility board?
No one has signed up this evening.
All right, we can move on to the next item then. I think the first item of regular business is to review and consider approving the minutes from the January 9th regular video meeting. Board members may have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 9th, 2024 video meeting.
I'll move. Yep, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There was a motion by Board Member Majewski that was seconded by Board Member Marshall. Is there any discussion?
The only discussion I'd like to throw out is that when I tried to join the meeting, I was prompted to download a newer version of Zoom, which I did. And somehow I got switched to the observer mode. So I watched the entire meeting. You couldn't see me, but I could see you. You couldn't hear me, but I could hear you. So I was an observer rather than a participant. So, but it looks like it's working well now, so I'm glad.
We're still dealing with technology.
We can certainly count you as present for the previous meeting. As
all right, great, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor to approve the minutes, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, I believe the minutes have been unanimously approved. Our second item is the utility board bylaws update. I believe we have the city clerk with us to present this item.
Give me 1 second to share my screen. Good evening, Utility Board. For the record, I'm your city clerk, Andrea Larson. Let me know when you can see my screen has come up. Tonight before you is a Utility Board bylaws update. The bylaws update came at the direction of the city manager, where she directed the city clerk's office to conduct a review of all advisory board and commission bylaws. The purpose of the update was to ensure consistency with the state law, to reflect new practices, and to ensure consistency between all of the advisory boards and commissions. Some of the things that were addressed in this version of the bylaws were changes to the Open Public Meetings Act that were enacted in 2021. This change to the OPMA required that for all public meetings, we are required to provide a physical meeting location for the public to watch meetings and to provide public appearances. That requirement is currently being met by there is a room at the community center for every board and commission meeting where the meetings are shown and where the public can comment. We are in the process of bringing back our boards and commissions to in-person hybrid meetings. Other changes that were addressed in this bylaws update was to bring consistency with the City Council rules of procedure. Also included in the bylaws before you tonight were procedural changes that addressed training requirements of the Open Governments Training Act and the Code of Ethics, elections for internal election of officers, how meeting agendas are prepared and put out to the utility board, and utility board meeting protocols. We also added a set of appendices that are consistent with appendices that are in the City Council Rules of Procedure. These provide quick reference to parliamentary rules in motion, include a utility board code of conduct, include communication guidelines between staff and the utility board. And it also included a page on how the city uses nextdoor.com and how, if utility board members are speaking about city business that may come before the utility board on nextdoor.com, the things that you would need to do to capture that public record. These bylaws were reviewed by the City Attorney's Office in January 2024. They are before you for tonight for review and discussion and potential adoption. And with that, I will turn it back to the board for any questions that you might have.
Board members, are there any questions or discussion points that you want to raise before we move to adopt or amend the bylaws?
Yeah, well, I had done the raise hand thing, but I'll just ask Andrea. I thought I read in there that they were unable to find the previous utility board bylaws, and I'm not sure if that means that we hadn't adopted any previously or they just couldn't be located. I have a very vague memory of actually having reviewed the bylaws.
We weren't entirely sure, but when I started this process late in the spring of last year, I was gathering all of the bylaws for the boards and commissions, and I spoke with Jason, and neither of us were just able to locate a current approved version of utility board bylaws.
Yeah, my memory is vague. I had some vague sense that I read through them at some point when I was considering, applying to be on it, and it seemed like something that I should do stuff, but.
Board member.
Go ahead.
Just, having reviewed them, and they looked very clean and much simpler. So they looked great to me.
And one of the things I forgot to mention, one of the other points of the bylaws update was to bring consistency for our volunteers as well. We have volunteers who will spend a term on the utility board, and then they decide they want to go and apply for the Parks and Recreation Commission or the Planning Commission or the Design Commission or the Arts Council. This way, all of our boards and commissions are functioning under similar sets of bylaws. Each board has their own individual things that are in there because every board's business is slightly different. But overall, the overarching trend was consistency for staff, which leads to consistency for our volunteers, you guys, and also leads to consistency for the public. The public knows what to expect when going to one of our public meetings.
I'll add that I also, when I reviewed them, everything made sense and agreed that they were very simple, and that's appreciated. I will ask, you pointed out the Nextdoor guidance, which is important. Question for Andrea or maybe for Jason, is there any other significant change with this update that we should be particularly aware of?
In regards to Nextdoor?
In regards with the bylaws in general, and change to how we would normally operate.
No, you guys are pretty much already operating under this. It just put it in writing.
And then, Andrew, I'm not on Nextdoor, but I presume this extends to Facebook and any other social media.
It would. The difference is with the other social media, should utility board members choose to comment on that, you would have the option of giving the city's archive social access to your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter that could do the archiving for you. Nextdoor functions slightly different than other social media platforms where we're not able to archive via archive social. If you didn't want to provide access to the city's archive social to your personal Facebook, the same rules of how to capture the public record of speaking about city business that would come before your board would be applicable to Nextdoor, which is screenshots of the comment before and all the comments before and after your comment.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Any further questions or points of discussion for City Clerk Larson?
Are these bylaws reviewed then on an annual basis to see if they need to be updated, or is it until further notice?
Yes, they can be reviewed as frequently as the utility board would like to review them. The one thing I've cautioned all the other boards and commissions about is we just have to be wary of the annual revisions, because over time that can do away with the consistency that the reread of the bylaws before you brought. Because if everybody's tweaking them every year, eventually we end up with bylaws that are different from utility board to planning commission, etc.
Andrea, if the city's legal department has reviewed these, do they have a regular review schedule for them? I don't know, every 2 years, every 5 years, something like that?
It would live under the city clerk's office, and then I loop in the legal department for legal review when changes are made. Anytime there's changes to the legislation that regards Open Public Meetings Act or any of that, I work with the city attorney's office to make sure those changes are addressed.
Andrea, what's the status of the other boards and commissions? Have they all adopted them at this point?
They have been, at this point, they've been adopted by Arts Council, Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning Commission. They're before you guys tonight. They're going to Open Space Conservancy Trust at their April meeting. And Design Commission's a moving target because they haven't had a meeting in a while. So they will be the last ones likely to adopt once they have a meeting. So we're about halfway adopted and moving into that final leg of getting the last couple ones. It was a big lift.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also thought that they were reviewed them, thought they were straightforward, and appreciate the work that's gone into them.
Yep. All right, hearing no other questions, may I have a motion to adopt the revised bylaws?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah. I'll definitely mark it as George, because we want to make sure he's well represented in the minutes this time.
Very well.
For the record, George seconded too.
By Board Member Ware and seconded by Board Member Marshall. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Our third item of business is the 2024 Utility Board Work Plan Review. Jason, are you covering this item or someone from your team?
I sure am. So in your packet is the revised work plan for this year. We've shifted things around a little bit. We will have a meeting in March to talk about our stormwater and our MPDS update. We'll plan on taking a break in the spring at the April meeting. We will be back in front of you with our consultant team, Confluence Engineering, to talk about the water system reliability action plan, followed by the meter replacement project update in June. And then we will quickly shift gears and start looking towards the 2025-2026 budget cycle as we start talking about the utility CIP in July, moving toward the rate discussion in the fall. So the schedule has been updated. It's in the packet. We do have a couple recesses sprinkled in throughout the course of the year. If we need to add additional meetings, we can. But right now, that is the tentative work plan as prescribed.
Thanks, Jason. I don't believe any action is required here, but are there any questions or comments? I had one question. Maybe it's not a work plan, but did we land on a decision around the board vacancy and when that would be filled?
It will be filled as part of the annual recruitment process with the other boards and commissions. So likely later this summer is when we'll have the vacancy filled, but it'll be part of the larger recruitment process the city does for all the boards and commissions each year.
Since the term expired in May, it just didn't make sense to try and fill it, and then they have to reapply.
Yeah, makes sense.
Is it likely that it'd be recruited for before the next board elections, or you said later or potentially later in the summer is the normal recruitment cycle?
The recruitment will open in mid-March, will remain open through towards the end of May. The appointments will be done at the first meeting in June.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Mute myself here. The the last cycle of that, I say we, the city council, there experienced a number of areas where there weren't sufficient number of volunteers for the particular openings. And I wonder if advertising this one sooner, and all this extra work, might attract somebody whose interests and talents are ideally suited, who would then be eligible for re-election in May, so that we not only have a full board, but we pick off the best possible volunteers that we can for this position.
Right before the general recruiting call?
Yeah.
Good idea.
I would encourage all board members to phone friends, and if they're interested, we can certainly get them the information ahead of time and maybe do some behind the scenes recruitment and solicitation of volunteers if at all possible. I mean, March is right around the corner, and this was the plan that was approved by the mayor and the deputy mayor, sort of the recruitment process for this position. But we can certainly work behind the scenes to generate some additional interest, as Councilmember Jacobson's points are well taken.
Jason, as a newer member, what does recruiting look like typically? Is it word of mouth from this group essentially?
Absolutely. Word of mouth, knocking on doors. If you know someone who has a potential utility interest, if you're hanging out with family and friends and they talk about those utility rates or the utility projects the city's working on, by all means, hey, we've got a vacancy on the board, and if you're interested in serving, you can put them in touch with myself or Andrea, and we can start walking through the paperwork that they'll have to fill out as part of the recruitment process. But yeah, it's usually just word of mouth and someone who has an interest in serving the community.
And once I put out the advertisement, it gets sent to all boards and commission members. So then that gives you something you can share with interested community members. It's advertised across our social media, our weekly newsletter, in the Mercer Island Reporter. So we try and hit all of our channels, but we really need you guys' help of drawing up that interest.
Is this a change in the lack of volunteers in the last few years? And I say that because I hope you all know that you're an esteemed committee, because I had to apply 3 times, and it was only on my 3rd time that I actually got onto the committee. I was starting to think that I should take the hint and just not bother. but for me, it was like a competitive process. You know? That's why I was actually curious if has COVID really cut down the number of people volunteering?
It kind of really ebbs and flows, and some recruitments were really successful and we have too many applicants for the number of spots we have. And then sometimes we just aren't getting the applicants to apply. Haven't really been able to see a trend in why. They actually went up. We got more applicants during the pandemic because people were looking for a way to get involved. So it's just kind of, it really ebbs and flows.
All right. Well, our time has gone by quickly, and we're at the end of regular business. Board members, is there any other business to discuss or items to report? Well, we are an efficient group. If there is no more business, the next utility board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 12th at 5 p.m. And the time is now 5:21 and the meeting is adjourned. Please stay on until city staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.